Alright everyone, welcome back again to more Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow. It goes without saying that as we progress further into the game, the more and more intrigued I get because of all the, hubbub about the mystery going on, and my dislike for, Eustace continues to grow even more. Yeah, I am really disliking this girl, and the more and more we get into it, the more and more I hope she, at the very least, gets knocked the hell out. That's all I'm saying. Because whatever she's hiding, I want uncovered before this game ends, I hope. But if we have to wait till the third installment, then I guess that's okay. But other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing how else more things are unfurled, if you will. So if anything else, hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for the love and support. And let's do this. I scarcely remember what was said, to be perfectly truthful. I dutifully fulfilled my role as a passive participant, as I had so many times. This time, however, I could not carry the mood all by myself. The jokes started to come slower, and the idle chatter became more inane. Eustace's foul mood was radiating outward, and Catherine had returned to acting rather odd. She would stare at the wall in between bits and pieces of conversation, occasionally nibbling at her food, but never leading the conversation the way she often would. Finally, Eustace stood up and brushed the crumbs off of her frock. Time for me to head out for the night, I think. I have some work to do before bed. Good night, then. Yes, good night. Everyone chimed in except me. I wasn't sure what to say. I was worried that any direct contact between Eustace and I would result in my fingers getting bitten off. Eustace left the room. When the door closed, everyone who remained exchanged pensive glances. I'm not mad, am I? Did I miss something happen with her? I didn't want to say anything. Nor me. Most strange. All eyes fell to me. Well, we had an argument, I suppose, in the cellars. Oh? Whatever about? Oh, what I wouldn't give to leave and go to bed right this instant. I glanced at my workbook, still resting on the chess table. What could I say? I didn't dare push forward now. Not tonight. I imagine Eustace might somehow burst through the wall between the library and the Misericorde if I so much as uttered one syllable of the truth. I don't know. You don't know what you were arguing about? No. That is to say, she seems very angry with me and I do not understand why. That does sound like Eustace. This isn't the first time either. I remember things were quite tense between you when we rode down to the village. There tends to be a bit of friction when someone scares the living daylights out of people for a laugh. Honestly. Hedwig, No. When this happens in future, you can simply tell us that Eustace is being a bitch. It's much faster than dancing around the matter. Well, unfortunately, she can't really go and say it. I mean, she could, but the fact that Eustace knows something about her past kind of, happens that. Happens? Is that the word? God, my vocab is shot to hell today. Let's just go with dampens. Moira snorted with laughter. It's true. Do you all not like Eustace? I adore Eustace. She's a conniving, heartless, ugly little know-it-all, but I am fond of her. We have to put up with each other here, no matter how annoying or strange we can be. What has Eustace so worked up anyway? She was acting very strange about the clock tower news. That's somewhat warranted, at least. Yes, can we please, inspect the clock tower before it gets demolished? I wanna... Oh, no, actually, that's probably what she's doing right now. She wants to make sure she gets whatever she needs before it gets, rebuilt. Excuse me. That's somewhat warranted, at least. The last one collapsed right on top of someone. It did? It did indeed. Squashed the previous superior, in fact. Both Catherine and Margaret looked rather grave. It was horrible. We never did recover her body. I suppose there wouldn't be much to recover. How horrible! What happened? I must confess that I wasn't interested in finding any clues or connections to Catherine's death at this juncture. I was asking purely out of morbid curiosity. Well, Margaret looked impossibly grim. Must we? If you can. Hedwig and I lived here after all. I, for one, would like to know the history. The previous superior was a bit reticent at first about building a clock. But I remembered the prioress, our superior now, extremely enthused about the prospect. Eustace was furious about it. Yes, she was. She'd tell anyone who would listen what a terrible idea it was, what a waste of money it was, and so on. What did everyone else think? Catherine wobbled her hand decisively. If I may speak for everyone in the room, everyone who was there naturally, we all liked the idea broadly at first. Catherine II was the most excited about it, if you can believe that. Catherine was excited about it? That sounds so unlike her, from what I've heard at least. Moira and Catherine looked surprised. Margaret told me all about Reims. Ah, yes, that was rather funny. Catherine II simply would not shut up about it. Anyway, Eustace was very, very torn up about the clock tower. And we like Eustace. Maybe not so much right now, but broadly speaking. Of course. And I suppose her arguments were convincing. I think I most just wanted to stop hearing about it. So we rallied to her side. Yes, it was mostly a matter of supporting a friend. We tried to tell the superior, the dead one, that we opposed the idea, that we could use the money for something else, that we didn't need a bloody great clock in the middle of nowhere, and she was having none of it. The old superior and the current superior eventually got very, very excited about this clock. We finally got through to the former prioress. Goodness, this is confusing. Soup. We convinced Soup. We showed her the bits and pieces were already falling out of the clock. There were concerns about the craftsmanship. The old superior and Soup both wanted the tower completed as quickly as possible for whatever reason. Hubris. Reminds you of something, huh, Hedwig? Anyway, we finally convinced Soup that the project was a bad idea. Or at the very least needed to slow down. The superior was, naturally, furious. It was so silly, so much anguish over a building. Then one day, while Soup was trying to convince the superior that the building was dangerous, crash. Oh, it was a nightmare. Good God. It was instantaneous. One moment the superior was standing there, and the next, nothing but rubble. The pile of rocks beside the chapel? Is her body still underneath all that debris? Where else would she be? The builders packed up and left the same day. We didn't have the tools to dig her out. Wow, really? The Soup's first act as a new superior was firming those men. Firming. Didn't even stop to think about giving the old superior a proper burial. Luckily, I found a fragment. A bit of a bone and flesh not clear of the rubble. So we were able to bury her in a sense. Up in the graveyard. The rest of her, well, she's just broken bones now, but I can assure you the smell lasted for months. Service in the chapel was unbearable. It was worse there, to be sure, but every now and then the wind would pick up and you'd get a whiff of rotting superior almost anywhere in the abbey. How horrid. A true haunting. That is a truly foul outcome. Eustace, I think, always felt a little guilty about the whole thing. Maybe she caused it. So I am inclined, shall we say, to be forgiving when she acts like an insufferable cunt. Yes, before Catherine II's passing, that was the great tragedy of the Abbey. What if Catherine II discovered something that involved Eustace's, secrets? It hit Eustace hard. How did Catherine react? I don't think she cared particularly. Certainly not as much as Eustace. Catherine was driven by something else at that point. Indeed. On to her next big idea as always. Honestly, the clock was always a bit of a distraction for her. She was enthused, but she was obsessed with another project while it was unfolding. What project? Yes, you must tell us. Moira, Margaret, and Catherine all shared a look. Catherine looked particularly grim. I don't remember. It was always something or other. The superior was passing, sort of, overshadowed everything else. Indeed. Of course. And we were back to Catherine. All roads seemed to lead back to her and her mysterious preoccupations. I was desperate to know more, and certain that these three were hiding something. But as we left the Misericorde and returned to the dorms to say our goodbyes, I felt oddly satisfied. I was terrified of Eustace's wrath, of course, and I hadn't learned much about the night Catherine died. In fact, I wasn't sure how I could possibly learn anything more on that important matter, but something was building inside of me. I can only describe it as an uplifting paranoia. Uses might be too touchy to approach directly, but what about Catherine, Margaret, and Moira? What had they been up to? Those furtive glances they had exchanged were as valuable, if not more so, than any account I had heard about the night Catherine died thus far. As I fell into bed, I considered their strange expressions in my mind. Is that how I looked when I lied? Perhaps that's how obvious I had seemed to Eustace. Something to work on. I flipped my pillows over to fluff it. The spill had dissipated. The spill. I had completely forgotten to ask Moira what on earth she had managed to do in my bedding. I sighed and turned the pillow over to the other side once more and nestled in for sleep. I couldn't let it go. I had far more pressing inquiries for her. I drifted to sleep feeling curiously proud of my own strategic thinking. It would not last, of course. Oh man, we are going through these chapters like no one's business. New tactics. Oh, please do. Please, Hedwig. That night, the strange painting I had encountered in the cellar invaded my dreams. And that was not my only worry. It will not shock you to hear that any and all confidence I had felt going to bed was gone by the time I awoke. In fact, when I dragged myself out of bed, all I could think about was Eustace's declaration that we're now enemies. Who cares? I'm fine with that. Dare I go to service? Dare I even step outside of my room? It turned out I would not even have to dare. Yes? It's me. Ah, for the love of... What, you already want to get me angry this early in the morning? May I come in? Do I have a choice in the matter? We need to talk. I think you made yourself quite clear last night. I hope I did. But I also said something that I regret. Oh? I told you that we were enemies. And... well, I don't really mean that. Uh-huh, like when you had your hand to my throat, trying to choke me out? Was it hand or elbow? Elbow. Either way, you were trying to choke me out. Didn't like it. I'm not going to attack you or be cruel to you or anything of the sort. We do need to get along after all. Yeah, you know why? Because you don't want me continuing on with my investigations. You'll be living here for a long time, God willing. God willing or you willing? What I mean to say is, I am angry with you and I still believe what you're doing is wrong. And I will continue to fight it. But, I do not hate you. And I do not wish to harm you. I let my temper get the better of me last night. I had half a mind to leap out the window. This, to be perfectly honest, felt even more intimidating than her behavior in the cellar. That threat you made. That you know why I'm here. I do. Well, I don't know what you could be referring to. I scarcely remember anything from before I took the oath. Whatever it is you think you're holding over my head, I don't remember what it is. Not in the slightest. I find that rather hard to believe, Hedwig. I promise. Do you? I wouldn't. Promises keep getting you into trouble, don't they? Even if I do believe that you have no earthly idea what I'm talking about, I do very much know what brought you here. And well, it's something that nobody would very much like to hear. And if it truly would be a surprise to you, well, it would be a rather unhappy surprise, wouldn't it? So, I think my side of the board looks quite good. How does yours look? So, it's a veiled threat. All I want to do is chronicle everything I can. For the sake of her memory, you know? Spare me, Hedwig. You know that I know what you're really up to. I want to do all of that for the very reason I just told you. Her memory is important to me despite your insistence that I didn't know her. Be that as it may, I think you should relax. Leave the mystery be. Isn't that the Catholic thing to do anyway? Without mystery, there's no reason to have faith in anything. Have a little faith. Believe whatever you want about Catherine, but stop making it my problem. How about you get off my back and let me do my thing, and it won't be your problem. God, I'm getting more angry with her. Jeez. You know, that just goes to show how good of a storyteller the developers are, because if you can get me to hate this character so much, you're doing a great job. Your problem, our problem, everyone here. You might have fooled some of the sisters, but the second they discover the truth, they'll turn on you. Nobody likes to sneak. I hated that she was right. Justified or not, I was a sneak, a liar, a thief, a pervert. All this is to say, I'm giving you another chance. God struck down Uzzah for touching the Ark of the Covenant when it slipped. Remember how slighted David felt when Uzzah was only trying to help? I understand how you must feel, but remember, God gave specific instructions and Uzzah did not follow them. As simple as it gets. Are you comparing yourself to God now? Huh? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Thank you, Hedwig. Thank you. Bitch. You are not God. No, but I could strike you down well enough. Alright, Hedwig, choke her out. I don't care anymore. Just do it. Do it. Just do it. Ah. And I would be right to. Hell, you are. And you say we're not enemies? Listen to yourself. And God was not Uzzah's enemy. Again, you're not God. I have to be firm, Hedwig. But I would like to be friends. Yeah, you and I can't be friends after all this. Hell no. She strode over to my writing desk and picked up my workbook. I'll be taking this. The hell you will! I'm sure you understand. I thought you said you didn't want to be cruel. This is for your own good, as I said. Have a little faith. So, shall we walk to service? I had no recourse. Aw, come on, don't give that to her. That's your... Yeah, you know what? Make another one. Very well. Oh, this chapter is just gonna make me... It's gonna make my blood boil throughout the whole damn thing, isn't it? It is with some shame that I must admit I scarcely paid attention to the liturgy that day. I was lost in my own thoughts. Was this really the end of the road? It felt like Eustace had me by the throat. Even if I had no idea what she was talking about in regards to my past, she did have me in check. For all I knew, she was simply threatening to tell a salacious lie, one that might ruin my reputation for good. Truth or no, the idea that I could spend the rest of my life hated by my fellow sisters was a frightening prospect. I weighed my options in my head. It would disappoint the superior, but I hated to say it. That did not matter much. What could the superior do to me? Versus Eustace, who could definitely ruin the rest of my days. Angela would be disappointed, but that seemed to be a constant. I gazed up at the ceiling of the chapel. Catherine, that's who I would be disappointing. And if that idea did not move me, if the stories of her strangeness and her flightiness were not enough to sway me away from her defense, then would I not be disappointing God? Excuse me. After I had disappointed him? Disobeyed him? If I was not already hellbound for allowing myself to be removed from my cell, then surely I would be twice condemned if I gave up on finding justice for a lost nun. And what's more, if Eustace truly did retaliate against me, I would endure a lifetime of misery, but eternal salvation after. Could Eustace say the same? That was all well and good, of course, but how exactly would I continue? I looked down at the ceiling and accidentally locked eyes with Angela, who was looking at me disapprovingly from a pew ahead of me. She was irritated that I wasn't paying proper attention, no doubt. Sister Angela. It all fell into place. I couldn't investigate Catherine anymore, but Angela could. She was unpleasant, but she was nothing if not driven. And I even knew which direction to point her. Eustace and company. I couldn't help myself. I smiled, relieved that I had navigated through this mire so quickly. Angela furrowed her brow, then turned around to face the pulpit. That pact Angela had forced me into would come in useful after all. I was still grinning when service concluded. Normally, I would have wallowed for a whole day, perhaps multiple days, after an encounter like this morning's. But here I was back on my feet already. After service, we all filed out into the countryside, courtyard as usual. Hedwig, some of us are going to go to the river with Eustace later. Do you want to come along? Hell no! Really? Goodness, and here I was thinking that the fishing spot was something of a secret. I've been tight-lipped about it for a while, but I can't hide it forever. Everyone can benefit from a little fresh air, right, Hedwig? Of course. I'd be happy to come along. Ugh. You have no idea, guys. Ugh. Eustace looked slightly taken aback by my quick acquiescence. We'll leave in about half an hour. It'll be too cold to fish soon. I'm not really interested in fishing, but I do like to stretch my legs every now and then. Be back before sundown. Our new oblate should be arriving this afternoon. Of course. The superior nodded and took her leave. Everyone else broke away as well. I looked around to see if I could spot Sister Angela. She was bringing up the rear by herself as per usual. I moved to intercept her, and she looked taken completely by surprise. Sister Angela, I must speak with you. If you're available. Hedwig? Nope, we gotta talk. Time's all wasted. I did my best to steer her toward the path to the garden. She was much taller than me, which made this more difficult than I expected. I ended up tugging her sleeve and nearly falling over as I tried to guide her. Hedwig, what is the meaning of this? I must speak with you. Excuse me. Yes, you said as much. I glanced at the others who weren't paying us any mind, but still too close for comfort. It's about... well, you know. She finally relented, although she violently yanked her sleeve from my grip before following me into the garden. We walked as casually as we could. I kept looking over my shoulder to see if Eustace had noticed us, which prompted Angela to hiss at me to keep moving forward. Finally, we arrived between the hedgerows. Sister Angela, I need your help. I've been trying to offer it for some time now. It's something else. Well, it is related, but... spit it out. My investigation is compromised. Angela arched one eyebrow and flared her nostrils. I braced myself for the worst, but she continued speaking quietly. Oh? Eustace caught on, and she was furious too. She made all sorts of threats against me and was adamant that I stop. It sounds like you have a primary suspect then. Why else would she react so poorly? My thoughts exactly. That sounds like progress to me, even if you shouldn't have let her catch you. Although I have no evidence, and I think there's something more complicated to it all. Explain. Oh, well, if the matter was that simple, and she thought I knew about it, why was I already trying to talk myself out of my convictions? Hearing them spoken aloud prompted me to second-guess everything, I suppose. She would kill you immediately. Is that what you think? Exactly. But instead she keeps warding me away from things, insisting that I accept the lie that James was responsible, attempting to be my friend, telling me I'm being protected. All steps on a ladder that could very well end with your death, Hedwig. She might simply be biding her time. Or she might not want to kill you if she can avoid it. Death weighs heavy on the soul, even for a practiced killer. I suppose so, but that does not satisfy me. See, I went to the superior and the bishop and told them Eustace discovered what I was up to and reacted poorly. Would that be enough to make them act? Absolutely it would. The superior is looking for any excuse to act, which is why you and I formed the pact in the first place. We can be thorough and prevent them from barreling into the wrong decision. In that case, I think I'm making the right choice. I'm not ready to condemn Eustace just yet. In fact, the more I think about this, the more confident I become in my decision. If Eustace knew what I was up to, she'd be worried that I would do exactly that. Give her up to the superior at the first sign of her strange behavior. So, if she is acting this way, I think she might truly believe she is trying to protect me from something. Following this reasoning, the question must be, from what? I'm not sure. Let us say I agreed with you. I do not, just to be clear, and offered to help. What would you want from me? I already told Eustace I would cease investigating, and well, I feel that it's in my best interest to at least appear to honor that, which would bring things to a halt. But then I remembered our pact. Indeed. I could see realization passing across her face. I mean, I don't think this really changes anything, does it? You were always investigating in parallel, I thought. And now it gets to be your responsibility in total. Or, well, not in total, but you can do what I cannot. Eustace is aware of me, but not you. Sister Eustace barely knows I exist. Exactly. Angela did not share my enthusiasm for this detail. So, what would you do in this new arrangement? Collect my observations and report them to the superior? Claim credit all for my work? No. We could even tell the superior what happened if you like. No. This could work. Perhaps. You could tell nobody else, not even the superior. Of course. What is it you need me to do exactly? I explained my previous strategy to her. See, at this point, I don't know how I feel about this girl in particular, but I feel like she would do or help us progress a lot further in our investigation than we've ever have before. And also at this point in time, she's probably the only one that can actually get ahead of Eustace's issues for the moment. So I would rather put all my eggs in her basket right now. My notes, my surreptitious attempt to frame my questions as part of a chronicle work. Angela looked grave and eventually shook her head. I cannot do that. You were in an advantageous position before. You could get away with a lie as flimsy as the chronicling premise. Not I. I do not have that kind of rapport with anyone else here. Then surely you can come up with a different tactic. I would have to become an entirely different person to be able to speak with others as freely as you can. I scarcely think I speak freely with them. Far more freely than I can. Angela had an oddly wistful expression. You would still have a job to do. I cannot snoop on everyone for you. You will still need to be the one mingling with the rabble. But Eustace cannot know. The old method will have to be abandoned, that much is apparent. You will simply have to redouble your efforts at the subterfuge. How could I possibly do that with Eustace watching my every move? You have to become a better actress. Stay in her sight. Be present enough in her life that she believes you would have no opportunity to investigate anything. Yeah, you're gonna have to do. Yeah, that's gonna be hard, but at the same time, that will alleviate her suspicions of you too. Ingratiate yourself with her and everyone else. They quite like you, you know. Nonsense. Shut up. They all fawn over you. This would be an easy crowd for you to please. What on earth do you mean? Haven't you noticed, Hedwig? They're all drooling. They slobber like dogs when they see you. Even before you left that cell, they would all talk about you like a piece of meat. What? Wait, what? They have had a wager running. Didn't you know? No, I haven't the bare shred of an idea. Angela leaned forward and gripped my shoulders tightly. She looked slightly mad, and spit flew out of her mouth as she hissed at me. They have all been trying to get their fingers inside of you, Hedwig. The question is of who will bed you first has been a topic of discussion since the sister Catherine died. What? Holy crap, are you kidding me? That's crazy, no. I staggered backward out of Angela's grasp and nearly tumbled through the hedge behind me. No. Sister Catherine was the ringleader, in fact. No. That's a lie. That's a lie. It is the truth. For the longest time, nobody seemed to pay much mind that we had an anchoress, but Catherine began to visit you more often. She would return and regale the group with tales of how she flustered you, courted you, taunted you. I remember it clear as day. I was in the Misericorde attempting to relax, and Catherine would simply not cease talking about you, wondering aloud what you look like behind those walls and under those clothes. Your height, the color of your eyes, how classical your face might be, what shape your breasts might be, and how you might tend to the hair between your legs. Oh my god. I don't know what to... Oh, that's crazy. If that's true... I listen to them all pick you apart like vultures. Do you understand, Hedwig? They will listen to anything you have to say if they think it might bring them closer to beating their knuckles against your Wow, everyone's so thirsty. Are you serious? Stop. Stop this. I can't hear any more of this. This is why I have been so cold toward them, Hedwig. This is why I have been warning you against becoming too close. These women aren't your friends. They have all been competing to fuck you first. A dirty, sinful game that I refuse to play. That's why they hate me. I never played along. They think I'm spoiling the fun. I did not want to believe him, but it made a certain kind of sense. But here's another question. Why wait till now to even expose that truth to me? You know? Why couldn't you bring this up earlier? There has to be a reason for this. No wonder everyone put up with me. No wonder Eustace kept trying to get me alone. The world she wanted me to accept, the lackadaisical bliss she promised would follow if I chose to condemn James, involved me getting into the bacchanal. That's supposed to be what Eustace has wanted from me all along. She insisted I accept James's story. She said that if I let things go, I could live out my days here happily. A simple, pleasurable life. Well, I am afraid that this is our best remaining vector of attack. What is? Don't you see, Hedwig? If you want to continue this investigation in front of Eustace, you're going to have to convince her you have made that decision. My throat was dry. I could scarcely speak. No, I am afraid so. Be the bait. This is the only way I will be able to help you. You must dive into that world of sin so that I might move freely around the edges. Holy cow, are you serious? You're asking this girl to do exactly what she is very, very adamant against. I mean, she does have like closeted, tendencies of perversion, but even then, it's still a little bit much for her. What would you do? I would help you sort the information you gather naturally. I am far better versed in the history of this abbey than you. I can tell you who is lying and who is speaking true. Where's that book you have been writing in? I can get started right away. I'll be able to piece it all together far better than you. Eustace took it. Well then, there's something I can do. If you were to distract Eustace, I could retrieve that book from her room. She would suspect me. Not if you were with her when it went missing. That's true. She would suspect somebody else then. Perhaps. But not me. To her, I am simply a bothersome spoilsport. And as far as she knows, we despise each other. She would never dream that I was down in the dirt with you. Wow. Very conniving indeed. We're all going to the stream soon. Is that so? Well, there you have it. I'll retrieve the book while you are away. And while you are there, ingratiate yourself. Make yourself seem available. Holy, you're asking her to make such a huge transition of a personality change that quick. She's gonna have to make, or at the very least she can do it, but she's gonna have to do it being her. If you know what I mean by that. Like, she can only do that. Her being her shy self will actually come as an advantage to that too. This is our best chance, Hedwig. I'm surprised at you. Why would you encourage me to do this? Will we not both see hell for this? Perhaps. But if we did, our seats would be comfortable compared to theirs. And that is what matters to me. Even one ring higher in hell suits me if I know that I did the right thing for Sister Catherine's memory. She held her hand out to me, just as she had done the night she had strong-armed me into her pact. Deal? I will try to ingratiate myself as you say. But I can make no promises about my availability. I scarcely know what that would entail, and quite frankly, it might take a while for me to even be able to look any of the sisters in the eye if what you have told me is true. This is our best chance. I did not speak further, but I shook Angela's hand. My whole arm felt leaden. Huh. Have a good time with the stream, Hedwig. I'll collect your book. Meet me outside the kitchens tonight and the real work can begin. I nodded slowly. Ooh, Hedwig got her work cut out for her. Oh boy. This makes me rethink all my relationships with all these characters now. Like, were they really my friends, or were they just ingratiating themselves towards me so that they can, eventually get under my frock, if you will. One foot in front of the other. I had an inkling that something has been happening out of my sight. I suppose after Darcy had kissed me by accident. I had never wanted to believe in any of that, so I never thought about it. Neither have I. I mean, they got us both. I stared at the gravel path beneath my feet as I wondered. So this was why Catherine and Margaret had been so anxious to speak to me after my mishap in the cell. They had been curious who had won their little game. I had answered them truthfully, mostly. But had they believed me? I remembered Adela putting her hand on my knee and stroking my chin. What if she had won? She had come closest so far. Come closest. Not so far. What on earth was I thinking? As I reached the stairs, I tilted my head up. Eustace and the others were descending the staircase. She was holding her fishing rod and bucket, chatting merrily as Eustace could at least, with her friends. About me, I wondered. Ah, Hedwig. Are you ready? Yes, I was on my way to meet you all. Wonderful. Perfect. One last morning of freedom before the rabble show up. The builders? I meant the new oblates. We walked down to the cloister toward the outer wall. Adela isn't wrong, to be fair. Soon this peaceful little abbey will be overrun with noisy boorish men. Sounds like paradise for you. Was I complaining? Oh, I'm not looking forward to having them around. I hope they're not rude. I hope they brought their own food. The chatter continued as we walked down the beaten path to Eustace's fishing spot. I chimed in occasionally, but in a purely perfunctory capacity. My thoughts were elsewhere. I drifted toward the back of the group and my eyes retreated downward once again. My head was so heavy with worry, I could scarcely keep it upright. I watched everyone's hips sway in front of me as we walked the path. Now was a good time as ever to start pretending I cared about this sort of thing. The shapes were quite pleasing, I suppose. The rhythmic movement, the brief flashes of bodies beneath the robes. After a while, the shifting fabric itself became slightly hypnotic. Was this how Catherine and the others looked at me? I felt ashamed for allowing myself to become so entranced. Pretending to be like these sinners was coming all too easily. What would I be, I wondered, if I stooped all the way down to their level of hedonism? Was there a word for what these women were? Homosexuality, which I had a passing familiarity with from Aquinas' writing, wasn't quite right. Sex required a penis. There was no seed wasted between nuns, but something nonetheless compelled them. There was something there to become addicted to, even if it couldn't be called sex. I found myself ill-equipped and uncomfortable. If only there were a more rigid set of categorizations I could sort the world into. Finally, we reached the little trail that led to Eustace's fishing spot. The conversation was too loud and too constant for me to hear the sounds of the forest as clearly as I had the last time I had followed Eustace here. It made me strangely angry. At the very least, when it came time to straddle and climb over the fallen log that blocked the path, I could still feel it in my hands. The subtle grain, the flaking bark. As I swung my leg across, I was reminded of my uniform's lack of discreet undergarments. I inhaled sharply as I slid across the tree trunk. Everything alright, Hedwig? Yes! Give her some accolades. It wasn't that long ago that she was struggling with stairs. Is that true, Hedwig? Yes. Adela laughed. That is so adorable. Adorable? I knew what she wanted. I've been trying lots of new things since then. You certainly have. I knew what she wanted. As I slid off the tree, Margaret held out her hands to catch mine. Ostensibly to help my balance, I'm sure, but I knew what she wanted. We eventually emerged into the clearing where Eustace fished. She set to work setting up the rod, and the others set about finding places to sit. All except for Moira, who began wading into the water. You're going to scare the fish. I'm going to help you. I'm going to sort of herd them toward you. That doesn't... You know what? Go ahead. Excuse me. She didn't want to fight, clearly. As I sat on the riverbank, I wondered if she was perhaps trying to put on a show for me. The fun Eustace, here fishing with all of her friends. This could all be mine if I simply condemned an innocent man. A shame for this fun new Eustace, then, that I knew the real truth. Look, there's one. She staggered through the water and waved her arms at something in the water. See if it gets too scared. I don't think it's going to care much about my bait. I'll lead one right to you, you'll see. I glanced around the others. Darcy was sitting next to Eustace looking content. Whatever fishing-related rift they had in the past was clearly fixed. Margaret and Catherine were wandering around the riverbank. They saw me looking at them and waved enthusiastically for me to come over. Curious, I stood up and walked over to join them. We were outside of earshot, but I reasoned that chatting with my friends would fall under the normal behavior should Eustace feel the need to check on me. You should join us in Catherine's dorm later. I insist, in fact. Oh, what for? Don't you like us? I told Catherine about your chronicling project, you know, filling in the gaps. I'm on code. I see. I'd be happy to help. It's only right after all. We were good friends and I should like to have her memory completely recorded. That is... most kind of you, of course. I glanced over my shoulder at Eustace. She was busy arguing with Moira about another fish, it seemed. I suppose the coast was clear enough. Eustace has been very touchy about this. She has expressed a certain amount of, displeasure with my project. Has she now? How odd. Not that odd, really. She always did have a strange relationship with Catherine. Look, we won't tell anybody else. I promise. I hesitated for a moment. It would have to be late tonight. All the better. No trouble. We've got the oblets arriving and supper and God knows what else. Very well, thank you. Don't mention it. And we won't either. Yes, that's right. I nodded at the pair of them, then retreated back to my sitting spot. Eustace was still bickering with Moira, who was now trying to pick fish up with her bare hands. Ooh, that was so close, you have no idea. I could have caught one by now, you know. Perhaps two. Yes, but isn't this fun? Yes, this is fun. You know, I feel like Darcy, of all people, would be the last person to be a part of this whole quote-unquote bet they got going on. Even if it is true, because for all we know, Angela might also be lying. But again, at this point in time, Angela's our only ally in this endeavor so far. Darcy's approval was probably the only thing holding Eustace together. Adela was standing on the bank watching Moira keenly. I think that she had begun coaching Moira on technique, although I wasn't sure she was basing her teachings on anything. That one there is slower than the rest. Where? Circling your left ankle. Moira ducked down and snatched at the water, catching nothing. A valiant effort. Wait, he came back. Moira reacted swiftly. By some miracle, she held her hand aloft to reveal. I got one! Her triumph was short-lived, however. The fish began to wiggle and resist, and it slipped out of her grip with ease. Moira leaned forward to try and catch it out of the air, but ended up falling face first into the water. Everyone began to laugh uproariously. Adela, in particular, was doubled over with laughter, in danger of falling into the water herself. I looked over at Eustace, who was chuckling ruefully, presumably at Darcy's encouragement. Moira pulled herself up to her feet, completely drenched. She looked embarrassed at first, but began to laugh along with the others as she stumbled back to shore. I had him, you all saw. You look absurd, Moira. Moira giggled sheepishly, and began to wring out her skirt on the riverbank. I don't think that's gonna work, Moira. Margaret and Catherine had wandered back over to the group, both of them grinning. You're gonna smell of pond water until that's cleaned. Take it off. A salacious whooping sound emerged from the other women. Moira held her hands up sheepishly. You'd all like that, wouldn't you? Yes. We're all worried about your health, dear. You'll catch a cold. That's right. Moira grinned and bent down to grab the hem of her skirt, then yanked it up violently to flick droplets of water toward Adela, Catherine, and Margaret. They all ducked, sputtered, and laughed in protest. Nice try, you lot. I'll put it in the laundry when we're back to the Abbey. And then what? Do you have a spare? Afraid so. Alas, I do not. Why is that, I wonder? Catherine did not respond to this jab. It seemed good-natured, but I remembered how touchy she had been in the Superior's office the night her dalliance with James had been revealed to me. I had assumed she wanted to keep it a secret from the Superior, but perhaps it was a secret to all? Never mind that. There's quite a bit of laundry to do anyway. I suppose we should be getting back soon then. We can't have Moira meeting the new oblets looking like a wet dog. You go on ahead. I still like to try and catch something. I will stay as well. I'll stay. I'm enjoying the breeze, I must admit. I'll stay. Fair enough. See y'all later. We simply must put on a good display for the new sisters. Margaret and Catherine escorted a dripping Moira back toward the forest path. Quietude returned. Darcy rested her head on Eustace's shoulder, and Adela wandered back toward the three of us. She stretched and yawned in front of me, pulling her frock tight around her body. I knew what she wanted, and despite myself, I gave her just a bit of it. You look good in this light, Sister Adela. Thank you, Hedwig. She beamed at me and lingered in her stretched position for a moment. Eventually, she sat down, and after a moment, put her head on my shoulder, the way that Darcy's rested on Eustace. I wanted to resist, but did not. You gotta play along, unfortunately. Alright, let's see how much of a good actor you can be, Hedwig. I knew what you wanted. Wow. We were past 13. New victims. The rest of the excursion continued in silence. Eustace never caught anything. Perhaps Moira's antics were to blame, or perhaps it was just luck. Regardless, Eustace seemed to be sulking a bit when Darcy gently reminded her of our obligations back at the Abbey. She deconstructed the fishing rod and picked up her bucket of bait while the rest of us stood up and brushed our cloaks off. Adela gently tugged my sleeve as Darcy and Eustace walked ahead of us, urging me to stay behind a moment. I didn't particularly want to dip out of my suspect's sight, but I had no choice. Pushing past Adela would have looked quite rude. Yes? Sister Hedwig, you're very sweet. So are you, Sister Adela. I understand that I made you uncomfortable the other night. However, I see the way you look at me. I could even feel your eyes upon me as we walked here. She leaned forward to whisper in my ear. I would show you more if you would like to see. All the hair on my body stood on end. She reached for my hands and held them gently. There had been a small part of me that had wanted to discredit Angela, to return to her this evening triumphant, with tales of how her assertions had all been a misunderstanding, perhaps even a lie on Angela's part, and that none of my peers were interested in me in that manner. But here I was, Adela, a woman who I had to admit was very beautiful and commanding, but who I scarcely knew, was inches away from my ear, whispering sinful suggestions. And I would show you what you had missed locked away for all those years. Dear Sister Hedwig, make yourself available. I recalled Angela's words, but they did not sit well with me. I don't blame you, Hedwig. Unfortunately, we are at a standstill in which we have no choice but to keep going because we also have a time limit. I was sure that Adela was very beautiful under her frock, but all of this felt wrong. I chose a cowardly middle path. Perhaps later. Adela, I'm very flattered, but this is all a bit sudden. I understand, Sister Hedwig. See, this is good, because even though she's slowly letting herself become available to these girls, she's also playing it her way. Because if she was too readily available, it would come off as suspicious. So it's good that she's doing it this way. At least she's playing the waiting game a little bit, but also just enough so that she could allow herself time to process all of this. She stroked my wrist and let go of my arms. And also, so we don't, lose sight of Eustace. She looked slightly wistful. I panicked, realizing that I had not done my part to keep her on the hook. I gave her a little kiss on the cheek, mind you, which seemed to brighten her spirits. Ooh! Keep trying. Whoa! That was good. That was a good move on you, Hedwig. You're full of surprises, Sister Hedwig. I shall.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.